All right. Well, welcome to the show. I have with me today Heike Delmore. How are you doing?
I'm good, Josh. How are you?
I am doing just fine. Just fine. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background in photography, maybe some of your training or schooling, just kind of how you got into it?
Sure. Well, I started probably just like a lot of other people. I had my daughter, and I got my first, good camera, and I just wanted to take pictures of her everywhere, moving furniture, getting crazy. Um, and before that, I worked for 10 years for advertising agencies as a web designer and a graphic designer. So I kind of, I worked with a lot of photos and kind of knew what to look for in photos, what makes something publishable or, stuff like that. So, um, but I guess like a main turning point into the photography industry was my husband was the best, was in at his best friend's wedding, and of course I had my camera there with me, had my daughter, taking pictures from the pews. And I put some of those photos online. And a couple months later, the couple that got married contacted us saying that their professional photographer had seen the photos, and he was pretty upset that, in their contract they can only have one professional photographer hired and so forth. And I wasn't a professional photographer and I wasn't hired, so I called him and I said, I apologize, but I'm not a professional photographer. And anyway, long story short, he was not too happy. I took the photos down, but I think it was at that point that I realized, hey, maybe this is something that I can do. So then I started my business then.
Oh, very good. Very good. What so basically just self-taught then?
Well, I did take a course like one night a week at the college here. I had, worked with Photoshop and all those other things from working in the advertising industry as a web designer, graphic designer. Went to Ryerson University for that. But for the photography, I took a night course at the college here.
All right. So what kind of gear do you use?
I'm a Nikon user, so
Okay.
I use a Nikon D3. I guess my favorite lens is the 50 millimeter 1.4.
Okay.
Um, yeah.
Great. So you're starting this business. What was your biggest hurdle in getting this thing started?
I guess, um, I looked around at what everyone else was doing in the industry here, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to offer the same thing. And I just figured, they did all the homework kind of thing, so why fix it if it isn't broken? And I guess the biggest hurdle then was, you know, you have a market that's saturated with so many photographers. Why are they going to choose me?
Hmm.
So I started looking at my work and what I was drawn to in my work, and I was like, well, it's not, the same. So I guess I just needed at that point to figure out how I was different and infuse that into my brand. And for example, like my couture portrait here, like I'm always trying to make things look like, stuff that I would see in magazines that I read, like Vogue or whatever. So that's what I'm drawn to. So I just tried to infuse that in my brand and differentiate myself to make myself stand out from the crowd. And that was probably the biggest hurdle and the most rewarding change.
Yeah, that's very good. So you did start off doing weddings, correct?
Yes, I still do weddings. I do both weddings and the couture portrait.
All right. And can you explain the couture portrait for
Sure.
us?
Couture portrait is a contemporary women's modern portraiture. So, what that means is in the studio here, we have hair and makeup. Um, the women will come in, they'll get their hair and makeup done how they like it. They bring a couple outfits, and we do portraits that resemble something that you would see in a magazine or a magazine ad.
Okay. Okay. That sounds like you probably have quite a bit of fun doing that.
Yeah, we do. It's like getting dressed up and looking great.
Was when it came to so how long were you doing weddings before you started doing this the couture portraits?
I did the weddings for 5 years before the couture portrait, and we just started the couture portrait last year. So we do both.
Okay. Was did you when you were first starting out with the weddings and stuff, did was pricing a struggle for you?
Oh, definitely. Um, yeah, definitely. Again, I looked around the industry, what was going on here in my area, and of course, I just tried to offer the same thing, and I figured they worked out all the research and the kinks, and then I realized that looking back at the end of the year, I was like, okay, well, I made this amount of money, but this is where I want to be, and um, so yeah, it was a huge struggle. Um, but at the end of that year, what I did is I kind of took a pen to paper and said, I want to make X amount of dollars next year. So then I reverse engineered it and said, okay, how many weddings am I going to have to do? How many can I do and still be sane? And how much am I going to have to charge per wedding? And that's kind of determined um, ballpark, what my new pricing structure was going to be.
Okay. And so the I want to talk about the couture portrait a little bit more because I think it's kind of interesting. So you you basically were doing the weddings, and then was starting the portrait. Was it kind of um, were you seeing a too saturated market, and that's why you started that, or did like how did you stumble into it, or how did it how did it happen?
Good question. So I would always approach the weddings like couture portrait because I always wanted to make that bride look like she was in a magazine. Um, I always tried to make them look, polished and take the photo to another level. So it seemed kind of just like a natural thing to have the women in here looking all snazzy and taking their photos. And actually another thing that I've infused into my wedding packages now are bridal sessions. So they get a complimentary bridal session. So they actually come into the studio here in their wedding dress before the wedding day, hair and makeup done, and we can get some really creative photos before the wedding. So now it's kind of crossing over as well.
Yeah, that's great. What's been your marketing strategy for getting people into the studio?
For getting them into the studio, and just like weddings, my main marketing has always just been do as good of a job on the last project or the last person you had in. I post them online on my website and on social media, always tagging the people, and that's always how word is spread. You see your girlfriend and you're like, oh my gosh, you look so great, and then she wants to do it, and it's kind of dominoes from there.
So I mean, basically, just word of mouth is how you're
Word of
getting most
mouth
of your
and
business,
yeah, and building it online.
which essentially is more just word of mouth the way social media works, right?
Exactly.
It's just kind of an easy way to tell people where you're getting your photos done and stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
What would you say, talking to somebody who's maybe just starting out? What would the best advice you could give somebody for growing a photography business?
Well, from my experience, you have to have a really strong online presence. So having a website that really works for you 24/7, a website that is like an employee.
Mm.
So in my situation, my husband would work abroad for about 8 months out of the year. So I would only shoot for 4 months. So uh, the other 8 months, I still had to grow my business to have it, fully scheduled for the next 4 months in the next summer. Um, so I would say you need a website that's really strong, a really strong online presence, like in social media, for example. Um, and I know I made a lot of changes on my website to get people to know and like me and be ready to buy from me before they were even speaking to me in person. So, um, yeah, I would say really good website.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about social media. How have you gone about growing your audience? Do you do any paid ads, or has it all been organic?
I have tried paid ads a couple times. They didn't really bring in, it got me more fans, for example, on Facebook, but I wouldn't say it got me any more business. A couple things that worked for me really well were contests, and I would come to get. I actually contacted a few other um, vendors and businesses in our area for weddings, and put together, this great prize. So we had one girl that had a photo booth, so all non-competing businesses, a makeup artist, and I can't even remember a couple other things. So we had like a great, huge grand prize, and um, because I've been together with these other companies, they told their whole database. She told her whole database, my whole database, and it really helped spread the word about all of our businesses. So,
Yeah, this has been kind of a theme running through the last, and I don't even have all the shows up yet. I think
okay,
this is episode number 10, I believe, which is pretty awesome. But um,
awesome.
there's just been this overwhelming theme of relationships in business and working with other people, other vendors to to help you grow and to help others grow. And so I love hearing that because it's very important. And I have the worst problem of being the lone wolf and trying to get all this stuff done on my own. It
Yeah,
it doesn't matter what I'm doing, whether it's my photography business, my online stuff, everything. Once you start building relationships and reaching out with people, it starts getting a lot easier and it's a lot more fun.
I
But
agree.
I love, for some reason, it's almost like to a fault. I want to just go in like Rambo and just try to do it myself, and I end up burning out,
Oh
and
yeah.
and everybody will. So it's important to build those relationships, and it will help grow your business for sure.
And like to your point as well, I always felt nervous about doing it because I felt like you have to meet the person in person and talk to them about it. And I haven't ever met them in person. How do I reach out to them? And then I just kind of bit the bullet and emailed them. Hey, I'm Heike. I do this. Would you be interested in coming together to do this project, for example? So um, yes, I found like doing it over email was easier than in person too. So,
Huh, interesting. Interesting. Um, I feel like we kind of just uh, kind of skipped over the wedding stuff that you do a little bit, and I want to kind of back up a little bit and talk about that. What what would you say the most important thing for a wedding photographer? Like, as a wedding photographer, what's the most important thing you can do? Besides, I mean, obviously, quality pictures is a kind of a given, right?
right.
But as far as just the wedding day and working with the bride and family, what do you feel the most important thing you can do is?
The most important thing, well, for my brides and well, my couples, we usually have an engagement session before, and we meet before, and I really try to get to know them and um, I guess be friends with them. So it's not awkward on the wedding day, and it's like, hey, Heike, grab this shot right here, and we're all having a great time. They don't feel awkward around me then, and if something's going wrong, which sometimes wedding days obviously don't run smoothly, but we just try and put out those fires without worrying the bride or the groom, and getting on with the day. So
Yeah, so just building that relationship ahead of
definitely,
time.
yes.
Yeah, it's very important. It's very important because there's a lot of stress. Sometimes you need to be the friend that the bride needs on the wedding day because family, as much as they are wanting to help, can sometimes be more of a hindrance, right?
Oh yeah, more of a stress. So yeah, putting out fires. Yeah, we do that often.
Yeah, and I find the best way to put out a fire at a wedding is with a glass of wine. I don't know. Do you?
Nice.
Um, this is a little bit kind of a tough question, but what would you say your your biggest business failure has been, and what have you learned from it?
I think my biggest failure um, was probably not valuing my work, and and I think a lot of photographers starting out are like, oh well, I haven't shot more than X number of weddings, I can't charge this yet because I'm not experienced enough, or maybe my work isn't at the level that I want it to be, um, and so then you're you're charging next to nothing, and you're burning yourself out. So um, for me, I guess realizing that maybe I'm not my target market, and
Mm,
um,
very
what I
good.
mean? Like I'm not my ideal client, maybe. So my ideal client does value X, Y, and Z, and would want a package that looks like this, and would want to pay X amount. So I had to get out of my own head, and um, I'd look at other brands too, and I would say to myself, um, you know, if my thinking is correct, Honda, I would have put Mercedes out of business long ago, right? But
Yeah.
they're both still thriving. So yeah, I had to have that inner talk, um, and start valuing my photography, and realizing I'm not my ideal client.
Yeah, I want to talk about that. How, when you're starting out with your wedding business, what and we kind of talked about pricing and stuff a little bit, but how did you go about just getting started? I mean, did you end up shooting some for free? Did you do second shooter with people, or what, like how did you break in?
Great question. Well, I had recently gotten married myself, so I saw, how those photographers operated on the day, and, for example, the schedule of what gets done. And then, like I said, I was taking that night course, shooting weddings, and was a second photographer for a friend of hers, and was branching out on her own. But she really had a lot of problems with Photoshop, and didn't know how to do certain things in Lightroom, and those were the things I knew how to do from working at the advertising agencies. So we did a swap. She said, okay, you come and second shoot with me, and that's what I got out of it. And then I would show her how to do these things in Photoshop and Lightroom. So it was a trade, and it worked out.
Yeah, did you have to do that for a while, or how many of those did you do before you were shooting your own wedding?
I did two of those, and then I was shooting my own weddings.
Okay, you just jumped right in. Did you have a second shooter for the first wedding you did, or did you just go in?
No, I definitely had a second shooter, and it was another girl who was also in my photography course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So were you kind of showing her the ropes at that point?
Yeah, I was showing her the ropes of the day, but I knew she knew how to use the camera. I knew she did great work, so I wasn't really worried about that. It was just, scheduling really where you should stand, what you need to capture, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Have you helped others since?
No.
No. Fair
No.
enough. Fair enough. But I think the thing I want to point out is that immediately after you were were on your own, you then took somebody else right away and showed them, and I think that's great because I see a lot of photographers, and you see this in any kind of business really, or any
Yeah.
kind. You see it with like chefs, everything. People that are not at the top typically don't want to help anybody else that's below them,
I
right?
know.
And it's like, is it are they worried about competition? You don't know, but the people that are at the top of their game, they're willing to help anybody,
Yeah.
right? Because it's more like passing the torch. At some point you're not gonna, we all aren't gonna be here at some point, and so it's like raising up people underneath us to uh, just pass on what we know. I think is great, and so I love the fact that, yeah, and even though it hasn't happened again since, you still you were willing to, show this girl the ropes. Do you know, has she gone on to do anything with her
Oh,
photography?
yes. She's actually moved to Ottawa, and because her husband changed jobs, and now she has her own full-fledged um, wedding business there. But I do always work with a second photographer, but she's only like she doesn't want to branch out and do her own thing. But I want to add something to your point there with the competition and how people, like you said, in so many different industries, they don't want to help other people. They want to keep them down, and and yet in our industry, all you hear people complaining all the time. Oh, this photographer just came in and she's charging $50 for all this, and um, the only way they're not going to do that is if you help them and you show them, listen, charge this, do this. This is, maybe try this approach. I think maybe they just don't know.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's the worst. I see all the time photographers offering, and I'm not joking, in my area, like $10 photo sessions.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So imagine trying to sell even $100 photo session. You
Yeah.
know, it's, I mean, and that's low.
Yeah.
But so what it's got me doing is it's got me. I'm kind of in a pivot right now from
Okay.
like I'm not going to pursue these family portraits and and this kind of stuff probably any longer, because how do you I'm not going to charge 850 for a session to try to get my foot in the door. It's
Yeah.
not worth it. And just kind of I'm kind of pivoting to, I want to go and work with businesses and just kind of uh, get their social media up to par, get their websites up to
Right.
par. And because of the cameras that we have now, they do not only photos but video. I
Yeah.
mean, we have awesome tools, and so my wife and I sat down last weekend and have about 4 pages of notes of how we are going to maybe start working with some breweries and some pubs and stuff about just getting them online and getting them uh,
Awesome.
you know doing some marketing for them. And I already talked with one pub in my area, and he's like, you should come down to the downtown and do that for everybody. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, there's probably a market here then. So that's the direction I'm going. And so I guess all that
Awesome.
to say, don't be afraid of making that pivot or that transition. If a family calls me and wants to pay my prices for a family portrait, of course I'll do it. But
Right.
I'm not going to even try and compete with $10. That's garbage
Yeah.
money.
And that speaks to the point too of, it's the people charging 850 are all the ones who are copying everybody else offering the same sort of thing. And like you said, if you pivot and you make your own way or you invent something new to offer people, um, then there's a market for it,
Yeah.
hopefully, right?
And I want to get behind the camera again working for people. Like,
Yeah.
that's what I want to be doing. So, um, what would you say is the best advice you've ever received when it comes to photography or business?
The best advice, well, it's actually a book that I read.
Okay.
It's by Stephen Pressfield, the, the War of Art.
Yes, I love that
Amazing.
book.
Oh, I can reread it all the time. I'm never bored of it. Every time I'm like, yes, yes.
I have it on audio and I've listened to I spent 1 week, I think I listened to it like 3 days in a row in its
Yeah,
entirety. So
amazing book. Just read that book and you will come out the other side a different person.
resistance, right? It's all
Exactly.
about fighting that resistance.
Ah, that resistance, yes. And especially the middle part of the book too, the amateur versus the pro.
Yes. Yeah. What kind of resistance? Let's talk about this book a little bit. This is
Okay.
I seriously I love reading this book or listening to it. I guess my wife always teases me because I don't read anything. I listen to everything because I can multitask, right? So,
Okay.
um, what kind of resistance have you felt or have you had to overcome?
I think one of the main ones when I first started the business was when you work at home, it's like people don't really think you're working or it's not important or, oh, she can get back to that whenever. And it was really, people just weren't taking it seriously and it upset me. I felt like I had no support. Um, so that was like a major form of resistance. Just feeling like everybody does at the beginning. You're not, that voice is like, oh, you're not a pro, you're not good enough, you shouldn't charge that. If you really love doing it so much, um, it's not real. Um, yeah,
Yeah, it's overcoming not only that voice in your head that says you can't do this or you should be doing something else
yeah,
or my favorite form of resistance is the new and shiny objects that are always out there like well maybe if I try this and it's all a form of resistance because I'm I'm not completing the task in front of me
right.
so it's
You're
about
not
getting
going
that
directly to it.
yeah, there's all these little trails that I want to go off and well maybe I'll try to write a book this weekend or maybe I'll try to do this or do like and you just got to stick the course. And
Yeah.
it's funny that you had outside resistance kind of where it was friends or family or something saying ah you're not busy you can just
Yeah, just do this. You can just stop that and, it's not important. You work from home, but I felt like if I was like went somewhere to an office, all of a sudden it would have more importance.
yeah yeah well that's very good I'm glad you mentioned that book and I'll make sure I put a link to it in the show notes because I really enjoy that book.
Yeah, and it's a quick read too, and you get a lot out of it. It's like he's talking to you, so.
Yeah. Um, this is kind of a fun question,
Okay.
and it's not on the list. This is I'm springing one on you here.
Oh
So
boy. Okay.
so let's say you run into 18-year-old Heike,
Okay.
and she says, "I want to start a photography business." And maybe it's not 18-year-old, maybe whatever,
Okay.
maybe a little older. But what are you gonna tell? What are you gonna tell her?
What am I gonna tell her? Well, like off the top of my head, I want to tell her, don't make this mistake like I did. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. But then I wonder to myself, had I not made those mistakes, would I understand what I understand now? Um, I guess I would just try and tell her off the bat, um, value your work. Um, don't be afraid to price that at this amount. just get out there and do it, because it will attract the right person. Oh, and also on the website, for example, only post what you want to get. Don't post, for example, if you hate doing architecture photography and you want to photograph, a couture portrait, women in the studio, don't post landscapes and architecture if you hate it, because you're just going to get more of it. And I did a lot of, shoots, and I'm not saying it's architecture necessarily, but and I would just put them up, and I would get more of it, and I'd be like, oh, I wish I was getting more of this, or weddings. Like I love weddings that look like X, Y, and Z. Post more of that, and you'll get more of that, and you won't, be frustrated with the other ones. So.
Okay, I like what you're saying there. So, and you may even be able to refine it down even more if you don't. I guess it depends on your person, right? If you really hate doing architecture, then don't post any pictures,
Right.
right? But if you like a certain type of wedding, then post a lot of those. I like, it's kind of like getting into your niche. Like, what is it that you want to be doing,
Right.
and really focus on it and become an expert at that.
Right. And you hear a lot of people saying, I don't like shooting families, but that's what pays the bills. And well, if you keep putting that on your website, that's all you're going to get. So.
Yeah. Yeah. And this can change over time, right? I mean,
Oh,
that's what happened for you,
yeah,
correct?
yeah,
But you're still doing the weddings, but you're also doing these portraits now. And
right.
do you do other stuff as well?
Sometimes with the portraits, the women will have their kids or their family come in at the end, and we'll do a family portrait because their hair and their makeup's already done. So we'll sneak in a quick one like that, but it won't necessarily be, completely focused on, like a family session. So.
I see. So, and it looks like you've got a pretty killer studio behind you.
Oh, thanks.
Is that at your house, or is that a separate space?
So yes, this is at my house. This is our garage that we have transformed into a studio. My husband was pretty resistant at first because that would mean his car is outside, but he gets car washes regularly now. So, but yeah, the space here has 4 windows, more than my living room, um, and we just put the stuff in here, and it makes for a great studio. I was really surprised and happy.
Yeah, that's very handy having it right in your garage. I'd be resistant of just having to give up my musical equipment and everything that's in my garage.
You just got to move it somewhere else.
Yeah, it's kind of a makeshift man cave, so you got a good man that will give that up for you.
Yeah, yes.
All right. Well, this has been awesome. I really appreciate you coming on.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I feel honored.
Is there any, just kind of, um any last words, any tips, any advice that you want to give the listeners, or anything like that?
Um, sure. I touched on having, your website be like your employee. Um, and for me, I want to spend a lot of time with my daughter and my family. And I found that, people would email me and ask me the same questions over and over and over. And it was kind of a time suck because it was something that could be, taken care of somewhere else. And so, for example, one main change that people could make that really worked for me is on my About page, for example. I found that the About page had a lot of hits, a lot of page views. And um, I know a lot of photographers, and they'll probably be mad at me right now, but they're like, okay, my favorite color is orange. I have 2 cats. I love, long romantic walks on the beach,
Like
whatever.
a like a dating site?
But you know what I mean, right? And
Yeah.
so I changed my about page to like it's kind of like a conversation with common questions that people ask me. I didn't call an FAQ page because people only go there when they have a problem. And it answers a lot of questions about, booking the weddings, a lot of questions about me personally, and I found that, people now when they contact me are ready, like they I've already established that, know, like, trust, and ready to buy factor. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Because I've answered those questions and they feel like they know me already. So, just getting your website to work for you um, would be one of my biggest tips because, for me, time is the most valuable currency, and if I can save my time and spend it traveling or being with my family, I'd prefer to do that than answer the same questions in the email over and over. So,
Yeah, and I know firsthand for myself that one of those forms of resistance is when it comes to creating websites and getting all that stuff, getting all that info on there so that you can
yeah,
avoid having those questions. You can avoid the wasting the time. So
right,
be diligent with your
yeah,
website. Get get the information that your clients need on there so
right,
that you don't have to send those three extra emails because those those take time. Even if you're on your smartphone and doing it while you're watching a movie with your kids or whatever, you're still taking away that time with them. So
exactly. And then when they've already, they're already liking you and they're already, I'm pretty much sold on you. When they do contact you and you do give them your product and price list, it's it's not about the price so much anymore, or the products, or whatever packages you offer, because they're already invested in you as a person. So,
yeah, I was going to ask you, do you use much email marketing?
I don't, but I've started now to collect email addresses, only because you just don't know where Facebook and Twitter and all these social media platforms are going to be. Um, and, you know, if I, for example, my account on Facebook, God forbid, knock on wood, something were to happen to it, all those fans and people that I talk to, all the followers, how am I going to contact them? How am I going to find them? So I'm now, I have an opt-in box on my website. I have one website now that is just like tips and stuff for your business and stuff. So um, definitely collect email addresses that there and now, because just too many horror stories with relying on social media. So
Yeah, exactly. I have an email marketing course for photographers.
awesome.
That's free. It's
Oh,
it's my lead magnet to get people to sign up for my email list.
awesome.
So I'll send you the link, but it's photographytipshq.com/subscribe,
Great.
and that it's got an ebook. It's got like 13 pre-written emails so that you
Okay.
can reach out to clients uh, throughout the year, and
Okay.
then step by step on how to set up an account with Aweber and get an autoresponder going and
Awesome.
link it to Facebook, all that stuff. So, um, anyway,
Very
I'll
good.
put that in the show notes. And when we get done here, I'm going to snag a handful of links from you as well so that we can make sure people can see your stuff. What is the best way for people to connect with you? Like Twitter, Facebook?
Probably Facebook. Um, yeah, I can give you that URL after, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I'll just put it in the show notes. So,
Yeah, yeah.
well, great. Well, hey, thank you again for coming on. I really
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much for having me.
This is very cool. So, thanks for doing the live show. That's we got one viewer in here, so that's pretty
Awesome.
cool. And the great thing is this will go up on my YouTube channel as soon as we're done, so people can watch it afterwards. And then I'm actually getting a little a kind of a backlog of podcasts. So I've got a couple weeks worth. So it'll be a couple weeks and this will be out. But
Great.
I'll make sure to get you the links and everything. So thank you again so much, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Josh. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye now.
Okay, bye.